What is good, backloggers? What do you associate with the term VR, exploring vast worlds that immerse you deeply in a way that normal games just cannot do? Or do you think VR gaming is just filled with gimmicky half games that would never even be considered adequate if it wasn't for the unique playstyle? Or maybe it's just... yeah, probably that. Either way, the cool thing about today's game is that, well, it kind of falls in neither category. It's not really expansive nor grand, but it also offers a lot more than just a dumb gimmick. I'm also pretty sure it's not. It's a story, a tale if you so will, that gets told in a very unique way, only possible in VR. That's what they said in the trailer at least. Interested? Well then, let's dive in and see if A Fisherman's Tale is actually worth your time, or even getting a VR headset for. Welcome to the Backlog project, where we play through a gigantic backlog of games and you get to choose which one will be covered next. Just head down to the description of the video to take part in our weekly poll and pick your favorite. A Fisherman's Tale is unique not only in its approach to VR gameplay, but also storytelling. We're not looking at a grand epic spun over multiple months, years, or decades. In fact, it's not even a day. The game tells the very compact story of a fisherman trying to get to the top of his lighthouse during a storm so he can help those poor boats out on the ocean make a safe return home. On his way up, he meets some obscure and fun characters like a hermit crab pretending to be a ship captain, or a tuna wanting to be fed the biggest fish possible. All of the characters in the game are voiced by the same guy, Jacob Augustine, trying his damn hardest to make each of them sound different, but his voice and tone always comes through. Or maybe it's on purpose given some of the later story beats, but we're not talking spoilers here. No matter the reason, the slightly sloppy and non-produced voicing of the characters works to the game's favor immensely, giving it a personal and immersive vibe that not many cleanly recorded, high-profile video game dubs are able to recreate. The game manages to handle heavy and dark themes like being lost at sea, losing loved ones, and your purpose in life in a comedic manner that makes the lighthearted nature of the game betray the serious and otherwise depressing narrative, weaving a tale that is not only gripping, but also just plain entertaining. Visually, A Fisherman's Tale is immersive enough to work well as a VR title, but nothing more than that. There aren't any impressive graphics to be found, and given the very down-to-earth nature of the game, I don't believe that was the developer's intent anyways. Nothing wrong with that, just be aware that you won't be playing as a photorealistic fisherman anytime soon. The only thing I really can say about the graphics is that they are very fitting. Everything looks a bit like a playhouse, which might sound weird but goes hand in hand with the gameplay, but more on that soon. Let's first talk about the music of the game. I literally cannot find the soundtrack to this game anywhere on YouTube. Not a single soul uploaded it for others to listen to, and I can't even really tell you why. Maybe it's because it was only available in the digital deluxe edition of the game and can't be bought elsewhere. It certainly can't be a quality thing, because even though the game's OST is very much on the subtle side, Norman Bambi made sure it perfectly goes alongside the laid-back nature of the game, while still being just memorable enough to make you think of your adventure in the lighthouse when you listen to it. A small ensemble of brass and strings, along with very heavy and unusual use of a xylophone, accompany you, making this feel very similar to a silent movie. By the way, if you happen to like what you hear and want to listen to the whole thing, drop me a comment and I'll see what I can do about uploading the OST to YouTube. Enjoying the video so far? Tap the like button to let YouTube know this video is worth showing to more people. Thank you. Calling A Fisherman's Tale a puzzle game might be accurate, but it would also be underselling the core feature of the game. See, what makes this game so special is a pretty simple question. How would a game work if you could play with yourself? No, not like that, you dirty viewer. The central premise of the game is that in the fisherman's house stands a perfect replica of his lighthouse, including the fisherman. But it's not just a puppet, it's the literal game character. And the replica lighthouse is the literal game world. That means every action you take, the little replica perfectly replicates. And they are connected, meaning you can influence your own world in unexpected ways. Sounds pretty complicated, right? Let me give you a quick example to make things a bit more palatable. Imagine you pick up a match and drop it into the miniature lighthouse. You have now placed a very small object into a very small world. But since it's all the same world, deeply connected, you also just placed a gigantic match into your own world that might now act as a bar or anything else you might imagine you could use a giant piece of wood for. This allows the game to hit you with puzzles that deny all preconceptions of how physics puzzles could work. You don't just need to figure out a solution with the tools on hand, you need to create the tools by being imaginative with this unconventional feature. Being the super brain that you are, you're probably already asking yourself, if the world outside of the miniature is my world, what lies outside mine? Well, exactly what you're already expecting, an even bigger lighthouse. So you aren't only able to grow things, you can also make them smaller by throwing them outside of your domain, like for example the window. Is your clump of thinking flesh overloaded yet? Don't worry, this might all sound mighty complicated, but it's very intuitive when actually playing the game. A large part of that is the fact that this being a VR game lets you immediately see the results of your experiments without having to worry about weird camera angles or having a hard time imagining the behavior of three-dimensional objects. Certainly not talking about me here. You can literally see it as if you were there, walk around it, and scream in fear when you accidentally drop a gigantic anchor on your head. Controls in a VR game are always hard to generalize because every platform uses a different controller scheme. Since I play my VR games on PlayStation, that's also what I'll talk about. This game requires the use of Sony's Move controllers, the little sex toy looking buggers they stopped producing way too early into the PSVR's lifecycle, making what was a hard sell even at MSRP an even harder one because the little stock you can still find out there has risen upwards of $150 for an accessory very few games even use extensively. Well, thank the stars I own a pair, so I was able to play the game exactly like it was meant to be played. Wonky. Before we get into the meat of their integration to the gameplay, let me just say a few words about the movement itself because it's definitely unique and noteworthy. See, the Move controllers don't have a thumbstick or D-pad, but the game still requires you to move around the levels to pick up stuff and solve the puzzles. Your way of doing so is holding the back trigger, which makes a line appear that you can point anywhere in the world. If you point it at stable ground and let go of the trigger, your character will instantly teleport there, making movement a breeze. Kind of. Your range isn't really all that great, so you'll often have to do some fine-tuning on where you stand by teleporting a few inches forward to actually grab something. A bit annoying, but with how easy this way of moving is, it's not a big hurdle. A great side effect of this whole thing is that it eliminates a large portion of what causes VR sickness, your character moving while you sit or stand still in the real world. This makes A Fisherman's Tale not only a great showcase of the features and capabilities of VR, but also a safe game to play for people who are still developing their VR legs. Now for the actual controls, I describe them as wonky and I mean it. I don't know if it's because the Move controllers suck or it's a problem on the game side, but it's very easy and understandable to get frustrated with the controls of this game. There isn't a lot to it when you get down to it. Your two controllers simulate your hands and the tracking actually works really well. You can turn them, move them around, and even fast movements get translated into the game in real time, mimicking your actual hand movements into the game almost one by one. The one thing the controllers aren't really capable of picking up on is depth. Even if you get closer to the camera or farther away, the game doesn't really translate that very well into the hand movement, making picking up stuff that is just outside your reach a bit of a hassle. Of course, the developers picked up on that and found a solution that is both pragmatic and easy to use. Just press the square button to fire off your hands Buggy the Clown style and grab something that would normally be unreachable. Perfect solution, right? Well, almost. See, what the button does is extend your hand by a specific length, a length that you cannot specify yourself, meaning that you will often overshoot by a bit or get your hand stuck in some furniture or a wall. This isn't much of a problem since it just goes through those, or in the worst case scenario gets stuck and you'll have to fiddle around a bit to get it back. However, this being a physics-based puzzle game, the issue gets accentuated when you are currently grabbing something. Let's say you just picked up a book while your hand is extended and you press square to get it to come towards you and put it where you want it. Your hand, along with the book, will fly towards you and stop right in front of your body. But what happens if there is some obstacle in the way? The book will crash into said object, and because it was flying at tremendous speed, will shoot off into the distance like in one of those around the world memes that were all over the internet a few years ago. If you're lucky, you can just follow it and pick it back up, but in some cases, most actually, it will just shoot through the wall and be gone. Since moved objects respawn at their original location after about a minute of moving them, this is obviously an issue the developers were aware of and couldn't find a fix for. It's often more comedic than problematic though, only becoming an actual factor of frustration in the last chapter where the game suddenly requires unprecedentedly precise hand movement that would make any surgeon hide in fear of messing up. Great news for all the trophy hunters out there, A Fisherman's Tale is about as simple a platinum trophy as it gets. Apart from just finishing the game and collecting pearls, which are completely useless collectibles that are only there to trigger achievements, there are some miscellaneous trophies like throwing around 50 objects in a certain time frame, which amounts to you just running amok, grabbing and throwing everything that you can find as fast as you can. Great fun. And a series of achievements requiring to only grab a certain number of items during each level. That might sound like it involves meticulous planning, but the number is usually a decent chunk above what you technically need to finish a level, so just going back and clearing them again with the knowledge of how each puzzle works is enough to knock these out and claim your platinum trophy. A Fisherman's Tale is a great example of taking a novel idea and building a whole game world around it. Everything this game does is coherent and made with the single purpose of making the most of its core feature. The result is a charming, unforgettable showcase of not only what VR, but games as a whole can accomplish when developers are able to fully unleash their creativity on the player, especially in a space like VR gaming where innovation is often neglected in favor of buzzwords and reliance on the hardware's innate features. Even if A Fisherman's Tale is a very short experience with little replay value, the fun and brain-wrecking gimmick, as well as the charming characters, world, and music make this a game you have to play once in your life, even if you don't have a VR headset right now. Put it on your backlog and give it a shot if the chance ever arrives. I promise you, you will not regret it. After completing A Fisherman's Tale, we had 2 hours and 33 minutes of total playtime. 6 levels completed twice, once for the story, once for the trophies. 13 useless pearls collected. Countless objects unintentionally thrown into the endless void. Multiple almost heart attacks due to accidentally dropping some humongous item on my head. If you want to support me in continuing to make these videos, you can do so by using YouTube's super things to make your comments stand out from the rest with highlighted colors, or become a channel member for just 99 cents and unlock some cool perks across the channel, like custom emoji and double votes on the polls. Any money I make from these videos goes directly back into the channel, or into my cat's stomach as snacks. Thank you very much for watching, and remember to always keep that backlog rolling.